want to start this conversation, and I'm going to ask the first question to all of you, and please tell everybody a little bit more about yourselves when you answer this question. We've been talking a lot. Handel yesterday talked about, took a poll, took a heartbeat of the audience, of everyone who's here, about how people are feeling about the future of AI. Are they feeling doomer? Are they feeling optimistic? We kind of went from the scope of, is this going to help us? Is this going to be good for us? Is this going to be like, maybe not so good for us, bad for us, kill us all? And I want us to do that up here, take our own pulse, because I really think that there's few spaces, maybe the kid space, kids and youth, but certainly in the space of storytellers and creativity, this is one area where so much of the discourse around AI skews doomer, I think. It skews definitely, if not fully alarmist, then is very, very, very concerned about the robots coming for creative work. And what I know of everybody who's up here is that we're not going to go doomer on this. I think we all understand tremendous potential, but I want each of you to sort of give everyone in the room a little bit of a pulse of how you think about this climate in the scope of AI and creativity, AI and storytelling. How are you feeling about this discourse that is claiming that we may have already reached the storytelling singularity with AI and that we're already losing jobs and we should all be afraid? What's your response to that?
Well, just to give you a little bit of background, because I think it helps in terms of my thoughts around AI, is I've been at Lucasfilm for 32 years, and I have gone through many, many different phases, many evolutions of technology. This most recent phase started in 2015 when I helped co-found what was called ILM X Lab, and it was Lucasfilm's immersive storytelling studio. We've now rebranded to ILM Immersive, but our goal back then was just to use emerging technologies like VR, AR, XR, MR, to invite our fans to step inside our stories in ways that had never before been possible. And part of this is because we genuinely believed that innovation in storytelling mattered, that if there were new ways to tell stories, we needed to be there innovating. So I see AI as just another tool and evolution in that process. And most recently, we've sort of evolved our vision and mission from, step inside our stories to transitioning from storytelling, which is essentially one-way communication, to this idea of story living, where you're in a world and you're making meaningful choices that drive the narrative forward. Now, to really do that, we have to be able to create living worlds and that are dynamic and where many people can come together and they can change the world in some way. And also to be able to establish meaningful connections with characters. Both of those things, I believe, will not only benefit from AI, but will require AI to do it in the way that I imagine. So I'm optimistic. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a glass half full person. So I'm looking forward to that.
HB?
Hi, my name's HB Siegel, and I've been very fortunate to, I feel like, be in the right place at the right time for a variety of industries. Super quick recap, I started at Pixar on the first day it was formed as a company. So I was there at the beginning and watched the growth of that amazing enterprise. I had the fortune of being Chief Technology Officer at Lucasfilm at the time and worked with Vicki a long, long time ago in a job far, far away for me. It was an awesome period of my life, and I enjoyed that chance to be creative in that amazing atmosphere. And then I went on to a little internet startup in Seattle called Amazon, and I was there for 24 years and finally ended about a year and a half ago doing a role called Prime Minister of Ideas, where we created some of the most amazing ideas on the planet that were unlike anything else Amazon would work on. We would collect those and present the best of those to Jeff Bezos, and some subset of those he would fund and move forward. And I got to work with an amazing group of colleagues that I was always learning from and see a lot of changes. It But specifically with regard to AI, I see it both a micro and a macro issue. And I don't mean micro in the sense it's small, because there's real people with real jobs and real careers that are on the line with this. And there are going to be really profound changes, and they are going to be uncomfortable at times. And it's a lot like people know about the changes in the Industrial Revolution and the Agricultural Revolution in the U.S. Back in the late 1800s, something like 20% of all citizens in the U.S. were involved with something related to the making of food. Within about 30 years, it was down to about 2%, yet we were actually making more food than ever before. And it wasn't the end of the world, and the culture shifted, the people shifted, the jobs shifted, and things, proceeded ahead. And I see something similar coming with the age of AI and how it'll affect the creative industries, and there will be a transition, and the people who learn to use these tools effectively will be even more effective and empowered to do their jobs. On a macro level, I'm very bullish about what role AI will take in helping make the world a better place. There will be bad actors, there will be periods of uncomfortability, but I think we could use some really brilliant advice on how to make the world a better place. We've maybe not done such a great job on our own with that, and having another intelligence beside us to help really solve some of these vexing world problems, I think will be a tremendous boon. So I'm definitely half full with regards to that as well.
So we got a couple of glasses half full, and Toni, I'm super, super interested to hear from you, because you are such...
Maybe together we can have a full glass.
Together, even more. We'll spill. We'll probably spill. You are such a leader in the creator space, and you were one of my favorite independent storytellers and inspiration, and you and I share some communities that are very worried about this. So I'm super interested in, as from the independent storytellers' perspective.
Thank you for that. So, my background is directing. I'm a creative. I'm from New York, Harlem, New York, to be exact. And, I started off writing and directing, producing branded content and commercials for like Pantene, Clinique, AOL, Nissan, Kmart, etc. And then, I was on that journey, but then during the pandemic in 2020, I got onto Clubhouse, which is where I met Letty and Lynette and Catherine.
And Dan.
I didn't meet Dan on Clubhouse. I met Dan through Armando. But yeah, so that really changed my life, because I got introduced to technology in a different way, and I got really close with a bunch of folks from A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz. So they were the biggest investor in the app. So they kind of took me under their wing. They're like, oh, you're an artist. Okay, try this app. I'm going to introduce you to this CEO of this new company that we're invested in. So I kind of got sucked into this world and got into Web3. And what I'm seeing with AI now is exactly what was happening with like the crypto conversation in Web3, where you have, I always talk about like Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, would call crypto and Bitcoin a scam, but you're laughing, right? Because you know what's coming next. But they're invested in it, They are working with BlackRock on the ETFs. So I'm like, watch what people are doing and not what they're saying. So there's all this doom and gloom being put out, right? Like even one of our presidential candidates puts out a lot of gloom and doom, and they know that people do not do their own research. They're not going to go see if this is true. They're just going to listen to it, get panicked, and then run away and want to rebel. So people, with AI, the cat's already out the bag. The wheels are already turning. You can't stop it. But somehow, and I know Gary Marcus yesterday, who is my good friend, I had asked about his book, Taming Silicon Valley, yesterday. He talks a lot about AI, and he was saying that we should boycott. And I do believe, I agree with that to an extent. I think that we can set, we have, in our society, we have these agreements, right? We won't push someone in front of a moving bus. So we could say collectively, we want this, but we don't do that. That's not what we do, kind of in line with what you were saying yesterday. But I think that I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think that there are people who want everyone to be scared, so they're not adopting these technologies quickly. By the time you get on it, it's too late to make money. It's too late to found a business. It's too late to really benefit in a way that can change your life. So for me, I just think it's important to embrace it. I started to lecture at Columbia University's Graduate Film School, Parsons School of Design, School of Visual Arts MFA writing program, and just to see the despondency on the faces of my students, you got to think okay, I'm paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for this MFA degree, And people are telling me that AI is going to steal my job. What am I doing? And they look so depressed, and it just breaks my heart. So I decided to create my own AI platform, an app that I'm building right now for screenwriters, because a lot of people in tech, they don't have that emotion of a creative. They don't know what we need. They're trying to push what they think that we want. Most people don't want AI writing a whole script for them, right? It doesn't have the nuance. It's actually pretty bad. It's really great for brainstorming, and I'm always trying to, like, I'm an evangelist for AI as well, because I believe it is very helpful. It can help you to get to places sooner, but the doom and gloom, it's like whatever bad is gonna happen, there's nothing you could do about it. Like, kind of like what Gary said yesterday, which was really funny when he talked about if China uses AI to invade Singapore, he's like, let them. That was you, right? Oh, Taiwan, right? Oops, my bad.
Don't give them any
Don't
ideas.
start any wars, Tony.
You heard it here first.
Can we edit this video? You heard it here first. But he said, like, let them, and then I can't even finish my thought. That was so funny. Because it's not going to be that effective. So I think that by the time we get to a point where AI is super, because I always tell people, I was like, it's amazing, but not that great, if that makes sense. Do you understand?
Is that your new tagline for it?
Yeah, one of them, yes. You could use it. You have to pay me.
TM.
I think one of the things that's so interesting as we think about this, and especially I want to get some responses from you, Vicki, and you, HB, having been part of organizations that have led the way with storytelling technology. I mean, industrial like Magic, Lucasfilm, Pixar, Amazon in a different way. These are big entities, or entities that became big and bigger entities that used technological innovation to really advance, like really push the limits of what storytelling could do. But one of the things, to Toni's point, that seems to be happening with AI, and I think this is one of the things that we get optimistic about and we get pessimistic about, is that this feels like it could be a democratizing technology. Now, with all the caveats around who's invested, who makes the money, who's building it, who owns it, that these are tools that seem to be promising some more openness around the capacity of anybody to be a storyteller. Anybody can make a movie. Anybody can make a podcast. Notebook LLM, right? Turn a piece of text into a podcast. From the point of view of folks that have been really in the red-hot center of storytelling innovation at its gate-kept levels, what do you think about this shift into tools, like radically advancing tools that could be, is not necessarily will be, but could be promise much more democratic access to storytelling?
I think this is one of those things where it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So the key is to figure out how to live in that world and create a world where we as Disney, for example, have a meaningful role, and individual creators also have a meaningful role. So I actually love the sort of juxtaposition between being creators, and we are creators with very large teams of people that bring projects like Vader Immortal and most recently What If, an immersive story for the Apple Vision Pro, to market. But I also believe in the opportunities for the individual creators, and certainly these tools will enable that. I still believe, because I've seen this, that to be most effective, the individual has to, at their core, be a good storyteller and be able to make good aesthetic choices that inform that story. So not everyone is going to be successful just because they have access to those tools. But as a part of industrial like Magic, which has, has always brought directors' visions to life through visual effects, I think the tool side's interesting because I see ILM as sort of an aspirational company for up-and-coming creators. And I think if we think about ourselves in that way, then it's great that people will have access to tools and that will just create a broader, richer storytelling universe.
I think I would lean into that sentiment. There's a famous story about a science fiction writer from the 50s, Theodore Sturgeon, and it was in the explosion of people writing science fiction, and one of his most prominent fans approached him and said, why is it that, like, 80% of all science fiction is crap? And he said, well, it turns out 80% of everything is crap. And I think what will happen is we're in a phase now similar to prior to the, what we think of as the age of the dinosaurs, or the Cambrian explosion, where nature was just trying everything, just throwing everything at the wall and see what could thrive on this early versions of planet Earth. And in the end, certain classes and certain phyla, really succeeded and became the ones that we think are canonical ages of dinosaurs. And that's where we are with AI right now. We're trying everything. Mm-hmm. Not everything is going to stick. And it will be about the best storytellers, the best artists. I remember as an intern at Pixar in the earliest days, I had the privilege of seeing some of the animators work on some of the short films that Pixar was doing in those days. And the animators were very talented, a group, and they had done a cycle, and John Lasseter came in, and he said, it's good, but let me try this. And he tweaked a few dials, and it seemed very subtle what he had done. But that character just jumped off the screen with just a few twists, from a good animation to what even I, as a non-expert, could see was amazing animation. And I think that's what we're going to see with AI as well, is that the people who really are good and know how to see one level below what these tools are doing and get the best out of them will produce just extraordinary works. But it will be in a sea of crap. And we're just going to have to, we're just going to have to, like, use our best tools to discriminate between them and raise up the ones that we think are truly going to be world changing.
Yeah, for me, I look at it as, really quickly, I just look at it as the creative team that you probably couldn't afford before. And what I'm seeing from a lot of creatives who are, like, I have a few friends that are, like, really famous in, like, different disciplines, like art, music, whatever, and they get really upset. And I'm just like, well, you have the audience already, so you could benefit the most from this. But I just think that I'm starting to realize that they're being gatekeepers because they don't want other people to kind of have a quicker way to, I guess they had to crawl through the mud to get to where they are. But, everything's automated, right? We're not using travel agents anymore or paper maps. So I think there's a lot of gatekeeping going on, but I think that it definitely creates access to high quality content. So I can do my own storyboards now. If I want to have an idea of what I want a certain scene to look like, I can use AI to do that, where before I would have to, pay a lot of money for someone to illustrate this for me. So I'm excited about it.
I think I could have used a paper map to find this room, though.
We actually could have benefited from a paper map this morning.
So you guys don't know, he's also a comedian.
And a scavenger hunt expert. Ask him about that. You really want to ask him about that?
And an expert wedding crasher.
Wow. So it's interesting. I think in most technological revolutions across the course of human history, the most disruptive ones have been ones that have disrupted gatekeeping of some sort. I mean, the printing press was experienced as very disruptive in part because it disrupted the gatekeeping of knowledge, right? It disrupted the gatekeeping of storytelling. And we're in a very, very similar moment where it can feel threatening for reasons that, I talked a little about yesterday. We like structure, we like reassurance, we like rules and guidelines. But now we're in this moment where the rules are kind of breaking down. And I want to ask each of you whether you think that is actually changing creative process. When we think about the democratization of a creative process, do you think that fundamentally changes creative process?
I think you can do things a lot quicker now.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Like, I hate doing decks, but you have to. And AI is so helpful. I always say it makes you smarter because as a creative, if I have to fill out an application for like some program or grant or something, and they're like, what is your artistic vision? And you're like, what? I don't know, read my script. So like AI can help you to articulate your words in a way that you couldn't do it on your own, and you just get there a lot quicker than mulling over it for weeks because you don't know how to answer this question.
That's a really interesting and subtle effect that I don't think we've talked about that much, is if you think about a job that you find really interesting, there's always going to be parts of the job you really don't like at all. And the question is, how many amazing people are avoiding doing a job because of trying to avoid the parts that they don't want to do? Mm-hmm. And if AI does nothing but assist in helping around the edge.
Yeah, it helps you not feel stupid.
Yeah, that will unlock a lot of creativity that we don't have access to before, beside the actual core job, just the stuff around the job.
Yeah.
That's a good observation.
Thank you.
But see, this is interesting because it's actually certainly in certain creator communities. Like I follow a lot of book talk and author threads, and in writing communities, there is, a fairly passionate, I think fairly passionate is probably understating it, discourse about how eliminating the labor eliminates the creative work. That if you're not bleeding onto the page, you're not actually doing the creative work, right? And that there's something important about the labor of creativity. And so I would like to hear from each of you, and Vicki especially, because I want to bring this around to what we've been talking about collaboration and creativity. That when we think about those balances between democratizing creative tools, getting more efficient with creative tools, to your point, HB, of like making certain work more accessible and interesting because it's become easier, alongside this question of what does it mean to creatively labor, and how does that feed into a creative culture?
Yeah.
I think for us, again, as I was mentioning, it takes a large team of people to create the kind of products and experiences that we have. And while I see that some of these tools can help accelerate that process and maybe clarify the direction, I don't see it eliminating the collaboration. And in fact, I think the collaboration is incredibly important. Catherine and I were talking about, like, what does the process look like? And actually, more than AI, it's just moving from, say, linear content development to interactive content development. On the linear side, you hear about writers' rooms and showrunners, et cetera. That's an extremely collaborative process. And I think we're looking for the equivalent of that on the interactive development, creative development side. It's just that it'll require people with different skill sets. So they won't all be writers as they are in the writer's room, but there might be an experienced designer. There might be a technologist, just to be able to know what is possible. Like, oftentimes you'll hear this term, creative technologist. So it's somebody who's sort of coming at technology with a creative bent. But you don't want to design an experience or a story that can't be executed. So if you do that collaboratively up front, then I think you end up with a much better vision and a much better product when all is said and done. And as I say, I think AI may help accelerate that process and clarify that process, but I don't see AI as eliminating that process.
Well, I always say that you have the sauce. I say with my New York accent, the sauce, right? Because you put the sauce in it.
Yeah, say it again.
The sauce. You put the sauce in it, right? It doesn't have the sauce. It's the pasta, right? But you put the flavor into it. So I don't know if you're a terrible writer, AI is not going to make you. Is my mic tripping?
No.
Oh, if you're a terrible writer, AI might not necessarily make you better, because you still have to. You have to be a really good prompt engineer, like on Midjourney, to get something that doesn't look like everyone else's, because a lot of the AI art all looks the same, right? It's like, okay. But, so I don't understand, like, the fear, because it does take work. A friend of mine, he made a song in the spring called BBL Drizzy, and he's actually a member of my community, of Bad Girls Creative Club. His name is Wallonius Hatcher. It was during the beef with Drake and Kendrick Lamar. And there's another rapper named Rick Ross, and he called Drake BBL Drizzy because they say he had a BBL. Do you guys know what a BBL is? It's a Brazilian. I see someone shaking. So it's a Brazilian butt lift. What happens is that they take the fat from places you don't want and they put it in your booty. So it's called a BBL. So learn something every day. So it went viral and it changed his life. And then a big rapper named Sexy Red did a song, and Drake used part of it in it. So they had to. Wallonius had to get his lawyer to now go, because they said, oh, Spotify took it off. They said, oh, well, he wrote all the lyrics, but Spotify made the music for him. I'm sorry, not Spotify. He used Suno. What's it, Suno Audio? It was Suno. Suno, S-U-N-O, right? No, he used Udio. So it did the voice for him, but he had to say, I want it to sound like a 1970s soul singer. That was his idea. He could have had it sound like a pop or like NSYNC or something, but he didn't. So that is taking his own creativity. So I think that it's unfair for like people to have this idea that you're not using your own brain and creativity and your passion to like create something. because I am going to do an album at some point using AI to help me, right? I want to be a rapper. And so, not a great one, but whatever. But I want to do it for fun. So like now AI is opening up this door for me to like have a creative outlets in different ways, and I encourage everyone to do that. And then you might get lucky and have a hit song, and now he has a writing credit on Sexy Red's album. So you never know.
I think that's actually an interesting possibility about how it'll play out. Over many years of having people approach me about getting jobs at Amazon and asking me what makes a successful person at Amazon over a long period, I went back and forth. I had a period of time where, oh, you have to be clever, you have to be brilliant, you have to be resourceful, you have to be this, like that. And it took me a long time to decide the only real successful quality is you have to be persistent. Yeah. You have to just stick with something and really be, and take that as like your core value. And the question is will AI lead to an interaction cycle that makes people less persistent, where they'll try something, let's just move on to something else. And I think that's actually a real risk.
Yeah.
So I would urge people not to lose that quality and keep trying for something better, and keep trying for to address that.
I've been getting the Muppet stage hook that we need to wrap this up, but that's actually a really good point for us to land on, and I'm going to leave it in sort of a similar way that Dominic did in the last panel, of thinking in terms of what are the further questions that we could all discuss together, and that I encourage you to bring to these amazing panelists, about the question of what are the risks to our creative energy, right? What are the opportunities for our creative energy? What are the ways in which AI might transform how we do creative work collaboratively? What are the ways in which AI might transform how we think about things? This is something I would have loved to talk more to you about, HB, so I want you guys to ask, to continue these conversations, but how we think about character and story arcs and resilience in those things, and the ways in which we continue to think of storytelling as a technology itself and not just a subject of a technology. This was too short a time, but I'm so glad that I got to share a stage with you three. And again, I encourage everyone, if you want to bring up the BBLs, that's cool too. That was not on my bingo card for this panel. But yeah, let's keep the conversation going. Thank you all for joining me, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.